Hello everybody, I hope you're keeping well. Today I'm going to make some green tomato chutney. Okay, most of these are green. One or two of them are turning red now, but most of them are green. This is a kilo and these were from our garden. They're all homegrown without any chemicals or anything that shouldn't be there. I am going to make some green tomato and apple chutney. So I'm going to get these washed and then we will look at the other ingredients. These are all washed and chopped now. I've just removed the ends and I've chopped them into maybe quarters or eighths. I'm going to put those in a really large pan now. I don't use a muslin pan for chutney, I keep that for jams because it is possible, if you've got a really sharp palate, to taste anything pickly in your jam if you've used the same pan. So I use just a massive pan that I normally use for savoury things like large curries and that sort of thing. There we go. In they go. You may notice I have a new apron. I made this apron. Really, I made a mistake. I cut it out when I was tired, so I cut the fabric upside down by mistake. It doesn't really show that much, but I didn't really want to sew it when I cut it the wrong way round. Alright, bees, so I decided to keep it. It's always nice to have a new apron. My recipe is based on one from this book, The Complete Book of Home Preserving by Mary Norwak. It's a vintage book. It was published in 1978 and it is the first edition. This is my go-to when I'm thinking up recipes. I've got half the quantity of ingredients based on the recipe in the home preserving book. I don't have enough green tomatoes to make the full quantity. I'm using these yellow ticketed Granny Smith apples. I made an apple pie recently and I used 3 of these. I'll have 3 left. I need about 225 grams of these green apples. adding about 115 grams or 4 ounces of seedless raisins. They go in the pan. At this stage, I'm just going to mix everything up. I'm going to combine everything I've put in so far. And then I'm going to add 225 grams or half a pound of light brown soft sugar. This isn't anything fancy, it's just regular supermarket. My favourite brand is Billington's. I usually keep that for cakes because it is quite expensive. Everything's good ingredients. Local or homegrown or from local shops. That's what it looks like. So the next thing I need to do is add some salt and some spices. The recipe calls for 12 chilies, however I'm using about a quarter of those because I've got some homegrown bird-eye chilies in the freezer and they are very hot, and I'm making this chutney for most tastes. I don't want to overdo it. Not everyone can take hot chutney. So here they are. They're all different sizes, but they're all just as pungent. I'm going to cut them up quite finely, seeds and all, and just add them as they are to the pan. You can use dried chilies as well if you prefer, or chili flakes, whatever floats your boat. I'm going to add those to the pan. And then at this point I'm going to wash my hands for safety reasons and clean down the board. And here I have 8 grams each of ground ginger, nice and fresh, and coarse sea salt crystals. That gets added to the pan. Again, stir everything through. Now some of these ingredients of course release their own juice, but we're adding about 300 millilitres of vinegar. The recipe doesn't stipulate what kind of vinegar. You can use raw apple cider vinegar, organic. You can use white wine vinegar. I'm using some pickling vinegar. Don't worry if you go slightly over, but just try to get it as near 300 millilitres as possible. If when you've been cooking it on the stove you find that it's getting a little too thick too quickly, if the vinegar is absorbed too quickly, you can add a little more at that point. I do occasionally, it doesn't happen very often. It depends on your pan as well. This doesn't have as heavy a base as the muslin pan, but as I said I like to keep my pan separate. So that's ready to go on the stove now, probably for the next hour or so, going slowly, and meanwhile I will wash and sterilise my jars. I'll wash them in warm soapy water, rinse them thoroughly, and then place them on a tray in the oven set to about 125 Celsius for about 15 or 20 minutes. I start the pan off on a medium heat and then Once the chutney starts to bubble, I usually turn it down a little bit more. But you need to do what's best for you based on the way your pans work. Everybody's different. Well, don't forget to stir your chutney occasionally as it cooks to stop it from sticking to the bottom of the pan. Now, the recipe talks about putting the red chillies in a bag and then removing the bag before potting up. And it does say that it makes the chutney hot. Well, I've just chopped up the chillies and just put them in as they are, and there they will stay. And that's my reason why I've only added 4. It's nice to have a little bit of a vavavoom, but you don't want too much. Anyway, while the chutney's cooking away for the next hour, I'm going to put my feet up and have a cup of tea. So I'll see you back when the chutney is ready to pot up. We're literally 5 minutes away from being able to pot up the chutney. It's taken a little under an hour because the base of the pan is not really heavy. But that's a lovely consistency. That'll be smashing. Right folks, we have liftoff. That's perfect. I'll pop one up now so you can see how I do it. There's enough chutney in here to make a few pots. I have here this funnel. This is a jam or preserve funnel. It helps to keep the chutney in the jar rather than all over the sides and the edges, the rim and that kind of thing. I'll just give it a final stir. I've got asbestos hands, I wouldn't advise just anybody doing this without a tea towel. Right, in we go. We might get 3 pots out of this. Maybe a little extra for tasting. You want to leave this, I'd say, a good few weeks before you open in order to allow the flavours to continue to develop. Having said that, it can be irresistible and you have to just tuck in after a week or 2, as long as you can. That's nearly full. What I do is I press it down the back of a spoon. I can just get a little bit more in. That'll do. If you want to, you can add garlic as well. Or you could maybe add curry powder instead of the chillies if you want a little bit of spice but don't want the chilli kick. So you want it up to just this line here. I have this wax circle and this will seal it. Just place it on top like so. Then here's a nice lid that goes on. Tighten it. Now you can these if you like. Remember, if your jar's hot, to put it in hot water. If you put a cold jar in hot water, your jar will break. But this alternative method is the vacuum method, and I've just tightened the lid as far as possible, and then as it cools, a seal will form and it'll go pop. Then the centre here will be solid, you won't be able to depress it at all. And there we have it. When they're cool, you can put a label on like this. This one is best before end of February 2026 because this is only part 4. Normally this would keep a year. This one is green bean chutney, but I only had enough for 1 3/4 jars. You can just use any label and just write the details on the back, but this would keep for a year. I'm really proud of that. So here it is. Here is my lovely green tomato and apple chutney. I'm going to pot up the rest of my chutney now, but in the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please comment. Have you made something like this before? Would you give it a go? Please share. Please subscribe. Ding the notification bell. Ding ding. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for the next recipe. Until then, bye for now.